Hey, welcome, one and all to the thrift store. All sorts of problems this evening, leading into the proceedings of what is night 9 of 2 weeks of tea, part of our 2-year anniversary here at TSP, and what the hell the powers to be are throwing at me tonight algorithmically, I do not know, but everything I thought was set up, ready to go. no issues. I thought my side until I went live, and then that's when the problem started. So this is about the third or fourth time I have actually tried to get this up and running. Somehow it removed all the content that I'd added to my stream in Prism app in order to do tonight's presentation, which we will be getting into momentarily. So welcome Nancy, Tams, Callie Ninja, Devil Speak. Who else we got? Says 7 are watching, but that's all I am seeing right now in the chat. So we are a little later than expected this evening. My apologies for that. I can assure you I was ready and waiting to go at 9 p.m. Unfortunately, algorithmic artificial intelligent interference has prevented that so far, and I still don't know exactly what is going on with Prism. But anyway, it is night 9, guys. It is 2 weeks of tea. We are celebrating 2 years of TSP TV. So let's get that out of the way. And welcome everybody. What's going on here? Oh my goodness. So as I said, guys, I was ready, set to go. There we are. Let's get the correct angle, although even that doesn't look right for some reason. Everything does seem to be a little bit, I don't know why. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just adjusting everything. Yeah, so as I said, last minute glitches as I was trying to put this together. The first time everything it was up and running, but the intro that I put on didn't play, and then when that stopped the camera wasn't working. Then when I tried to reset up my Prism app and restart the stream, the camera wasn't working. And then when I tried to re-upload the content, the presentation and the intro, which you just hopefully enjoyed, it wouldn't find them. So I had to eventually close down the phone, restart it, re-upload some stuff, reformat the intro, and get up and running. So I managed to do that all in the last 15 or so minutes, which has been a little bit stressful, and I am somewhat kerfuffled because, as I said, I thought I was well ahead of the game, and even have part of tomorrow's presentation pre-recorded with views to put additional content to that. Welcome Sings. So good to see some of you regular offenders once again here at the thrift store, where tonight's content we are going to be talking about the infamous Tavistock Institute, something I have mentioned a couple of times in the past, maybe something some of you may be familiar with, something some of you may not be familiar with, but the Tavistock Institute is something that we do all need to be very aware of, because their influence is great wide, and they really are pulling a lot of strings of a lot of organizations and governments and secret agencies. They are pretty high up the elites pyramid. They would be somewhere near the very top in many ways. The elites, when they have their ideas for control and they need to try and figure out ways to implement them, they go to their good old buddies at Tavistock. So we are going to be looking at Tavistock. Now, as I said, we do have some footage for tomorrow. This is going to be a two-parter, because when I did start going into Tavistock, it just unfolds. Where to start, where to begin, where to end, what haven't they done would be a lot easier and shorter content to bring you once we do unravel the mystery of Tavistock, and partly why we are going down the Tavistock road tonight instead of Thursday, as I did suggested, which might have been my own undoing had we just gone in with TSP TV's Knowing T, Knowing You episode this evening. We would have probably not had so many glitches. But as I said, I realised that Thursday is Thanksgiving for you south of the border, so I figured to myself, you know what, let's switch it up. Let's do Tavistock on Tuesday, and then on Thursday we will be doing the Knowing Tea, Knowing You Thanksgiving special as part of 2 weeks of tea, and it is Thanksgiving down there for you in the good old US of A. So that is what we will be planning. It might even be a variety night, bringing a little bit of mix and match is something I have got a little idea of experimentation for. But as I said, back to tonight, we are going to be talking about Tavistock. Now, if or not, that is why I had so many glitches trying to get the stream up and running tonight. Now we only have 5, so again the very low turnout for Tuesday's evening is the algorithm preventing people from getting notifications, tuning in, or being paying attention, or have I scared the 2 of the 7 that were tuned in away with the Tavistock talk? But down to 5 now. Oh my goodness, the Titanic. Let's get the violins out. But up until tonight, TSP TV 2 weeks of tea has been on a little bit of a roll, as I think since sort of maybe night 2 of the time travel we started to peak, get the enthusiasm, seem to have people wanting to come back for more, paying attention to the content and listening along intently. And I don't think we had a better stream than the Sunday night JFK remembrance, where we did have a look at the events on that day, has not told by the mainstream, and that got over 150 views so far. I think it's even close to 160, and we had over 25 people, I think 27 at one point, the most amount of viewers that we've had watching a live stream at TSP TV in an awful long time. And even last night, again, over 100 views, and those 2 JFK related videos have got over 100 views. As unlike any of the other predecessors in 2 weeks of tea. But it's not necessarily about getting lots and lots of views. It's about those who do view retaining some of the information, and that is what I do aim to do as part of this, is share some information that I've researched, looked into, found interesting, found informative, and dare I say found very disturbing, to say the least, when you do look at some of the goings on by these shadow governments and secret societies and clandestine agencies, and especially none more could be more sinister and disturbing than the events of the assassination of John F. Kennedy back in 1963. And of course we cannot fail to mention the events of a certain Tuesday in September. Now, all of those events, not only were we looking at the MK Ultra connection with JFK, but Tavistock, MK Ultra is their baby, and Tavistock was formed in the 20s, and their purpose and intent is social engineering, mass manipulation and mind control. And we are going to be looking at a little bit of an introduction to Tavistock today. And as I said, when I started to do this presentation, it did sort of open up a wider wormhole than I was willing to sort of go down in terms of tonight content. I did want to sort of bring maybe an hour 30-minute presentation, a little mix of me reading articles and some videos. And I did actually start my recording yesterday, and all of a sudden I've got an internet connection is unstable message just popped up. Welcome Mrs. L, nice to see you here at the thrift store. 8 folks watching. So as I said, this does seem to be the lowest turnout so far as part of TSP TV's 2 weeks of tea. And Tuesday nights usually is, or was once upon a time, the regular TSP TV live experience. When we first really started going live to an audience, it was on a Tuesday night, and that was partly because due to my work schedule at the time, I did have a real day job once upon a time. Although it's service industry, as a chef I worked in the evening time, but I did have a full-time job once upon a time, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays were my day off when in my part-time, and just for fun and just to keep myself occupied, I started making videos, and we started streaming live. So 10 people are watching, that's good. I always do like to get into the double figures. But in terms of Tavistock, I did start doing some screen recording of some information, relevant documentaries with relevant information in them, rather, that will give you a little bit visual and get you something else to listen to other than my voice, although some of you do enjoy it. But as I said, I kind of wanted to start off by talking about Tavistock's influence with the psychedelic hippie movement, and in particular the British invasion, the mop top Beatles, and the Rolling Stones that were introduced to the United States in the aftermath of Kennedy. And Kennedy's assassination was the traumatic, distressful disruptor of society, psychological operation. And guess who played a little part in that? I never guessed, but Tavistock. And their connections obviously to MK Ultra, and the fact that, you know, places like Montauk come as a result of Tavistock think tank. And as I said, really and truly, since 1920s, there isn't much of society hasn't been manipulated by Tavistock. They are the enemy. They are not exactly hidden, but they are hiding in plain sight, and the many secrets that they do hide behind the walls of their institute, and the many subsidiaries and conglomerates that they sort of share in their own, is over 3,000 across the globe. So they have 3,000 organizations and institutes under their umbrella that are designed solely, and their only purpose and intent is to deliver the shadow government their one world order by manipulating the masses with multiple methods of mind control through mainstream media, social media, Hollywood entertainment, music, movies, television, and radio broadcasting, the Associated Press, news. Everything is Tavistock tarnished. So if or not, you guys, as I said, has anybody heard of Tavistock Institute in the chat there? I'm buffering. That's what I'm telling you, Sings. Tonight I've had a lot of interesting events leading into this stream, trying to get up and running. Everything on my side in my app is upside down, which is causing me a little bit of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. It's a little bit disruptive, and again, that's what Tavistock do. They disrupt societies. Are they using the artificial algorithm in my cellular device, which I use to record all the information that I am going to bring to you in tonight's presentation. And as I said, once the doors to Tavistock are open, then it's almost like they never close. You could have, or rather I could have, a channel where we talk about Tavistock every day for the foreseeable future, for the next couple of years, and never talk about the same subject twice. Tavistock's web is absolutely huge and massive, people. So we are going on a little bit of an exploration down a rabbit hole. So tonight's, it's lengthy as well. So tonight, and even then, trying to keep it short, it went longer than anticipated. It is around an hour and 40 minutes long, but there's some reading, and there's also some stuff to look at, and there's also some stuff to listen to. There's a little piece of music and things there. So if you have heard of it, you're about to hear of it a little bit more. And tomorrow we will be continuing this, where we will be looking at, in particular, the 60s movements and the aftermath of JFK, which I was going to kind of do today, but we sort of couldn't really do that without knowing exactly who Tavistock are. So what I'm telling you, Devil, they're buff me. I've had 3 internet connection unstable notifications pop up. As I mentioned, everything on my app is upside down, which is, you know, muscle memory, and I know where everything is, so I'm kind of operating a little bit back to front. I'm lucky enough the backup phone is working normally. Hey Angela, nice to see you. But I do like using this phone because it is purposely meant for streaming, although it is a gaming stream phone. Lots of people play games and they stream them live onto Twitch and YouTube and such forth. So this is in particular why I use this phone for my streaming, because it is a phone designed for that purpose and has a slightly bigger screen and is easier to sort of navigate in work than this one. But I use it as my backup. So I've got your comments up on the screen here. We are up to 11. Some of you have got Snow, it seems. That was a little, sings a lot there. Welcome, Kathy. Third time's a charm, my darling. Glad to see you back again. You're becoming a part of the furniture, and dare I say, you're one of the most welcome regular offenders to arrive at the thrift store in recent weeks, along with Devil. And we haven't seen Warfist for a couple of days. I wonder if he's all right and up to no good somewhere in the world. So as I said, guys, we've got a 2-part Tavistock stream, and again, all the teas, and we will lead into Thursday's Thanksgiving special, and by then we will only have a couple of days left of 2 weeks of tea, as it will be our celebration weekend. Saturday night, I've been telling you for a few days now, we are going to be going to a galaxy far, far away, and I'm going to bring you my baby Star Wars Decoded. I've literally spent days on the intro that I've pretty much completed, unless I do tinker with it a little bit more before Saturday night, and we might even be going on at an earlier time, and it might be a long night on Saturday. So I said to you yesterday, I think Devil Speak, you might want to start pre-rolling now, buy yourself an edible or bake yourself an edible. In judging by our little Discord chat last night after the show, you're going to be good for that for quite the foreseeable. But anyway, Saturday night is not tonight, but that is something I am trying to do, whet your appetite for future content and try and leave you wanting to come in back for more. So it is a little bit disappointing when only 5 folks do arrive at the beginning of this. But as I said, guys, we did have some problems getting up and running, and if or not, that is because I am on the Tavistock topic now. There are stuff available on YouTube, but again, there seems to have been a culling of content. Censorship, shadow banning is rich and ripe on the YouTube platform, and a lot of stuff that I once watched some while ago, and even not that distant past ago, is now no longer available on YouTube. So they have removed quite a lot, but Tavistock, as you are about to discover, guys, is a very, very eye-opening and disturbing rabbit hole indeed. And in recent weeks, a lot of my content has been about electromagnetic mind control. It's been about MK Ultra. It's been about monarch programming, social engineering, and how pretty much your news feed that you look at, whatever particular platform of choice you have a news feed, pretty much everyone among us these day and age doesn't at one point of the day scan through our news feed. That is your designed mind control. We are gonna get a little bit into that tonight perhaps, but probably more so tomorrow, just the methodology and the means of the social engineering that comes out of Tavistock. Hey hun, did you happen to get what I sent? No, I didn't. Did you send me an email or is something in the mail? I haven't really been checking emails and stuff as much because I've been a little bit busy with this 2 weeks of tea, and you guys, I'm noticing there are buffering bad now. Something I don't know if you can see, my Wi-Fi signal is at full strength. I'm about 10 feet from the router, so I've had also no problems with buffering or anything. Maybe a couple of people mentioned they had sound issues, but that might be with their device rather than things at my side. But I have had sound issues, I have had censorship, I am shadow banned and passively censored. Something I might feature a little bit is a behind the scenes at TSP TV as part of the Thursday Thanksgiving episode, and I may show you a little bit into my stats and analytic application studio, the YouTube studio, so you can just see what shadow banning looks like my side of the fence. So buffering, I do suspect, guys, that we have, or I have triggered something within my phone that is not that the content I am trying to bring you is not tolerated by the powers to be. So it'd be interesting to see if our good old friends, the Google moderator team, make an appearance this evening with tonight's content. And as I said, it is a very interesting rabbit hole, and because they are so very powerful and have their key fingers in so many pies, the buffering may be someone cutting in and out. Possibly, I don't know. There's some interference or something for sure. But everything else, my computer is hooked up. I'm looking at that. That's got full Wi-Fi signal. My backup phone has got no problems. But some of you guys are buffering, and something that is interesting that I kind of watched the stream here. I haven't noticed my stream buffering. So if or not this is targeting individual users as a result, who knows? Maybe those that are in close connection, those that are in the Discord or stuff, perhaps it's all connected. All of these devices and apps and things are synchronized and part of a grand and more disturbing signal. So it's going to be interesting trying to get the presentation up tonight, because everything, as I said, is upside down for me. And yeah, there, let me see if it's upside down on the stream when it comes up on my side of the computer. Sorry about this, guys, if you've got a little bit of disruption. I think it's the sun. Yeah, somebody was saying, okay, so it is upside down. God, everything is like not working today. All right, that's on. So next thing to do is turn off the camera, and we will be turning off the microphone momentarily. So as I said, guys, this is around about an hour 40 minutes, so make yourself comfortable. And this is what I'm saying, that I've never experienced my app putting everything upside down for me, which is, as I said, very, very disrupted. Trying to work this in live in real time disruption. And as I said, this is something that the good old Tavistock Institute specialize in. So as I said, guys, I'm going to turn off the mic now and press play. Hopefully we'll have no glitches, but I'm not expecting that to happen. I am fearing the worst, so fingers crossed, guys. But if not, let's hope you enjoy this. Okay, guys, so hopefully that little snippet of information on Tavistock has whetted your appetite to know more about the institute that really is controlling almost everything you think, do, how you behave, what you see, what you eat, what you behave, who you vote for, all of the above. Everything in society, one way or another, has had an influence from Tavistock. And we are going to look at a little article, which, lucky enough, is an 8-minute read, but this is probably the shortest of the articles we will be seeing. And at time of recording, I'm not sure how many articles I will be able to record and put into this presentation before time restraints get in. And the reason being, where to start with Tavistock. There is just so much to unravel with this particular clandestine, tyrannical institution. And, you know, this is really a very, very prime example of how the sort of industrialized military complex works, and who, in fact, controls the military industrial complex. It would be Tavistock. So let's go on. As I said, this is possibly the shortest of the articles we will be featuring tonight. And if I'm not at time of recording, this ends up being a two-parter or not, I don't know. At the minute, we do have a lot to go through, and I do have a lot on my list with regards to Tavistock. And as I said, there's just so much going on with this institute, it is almost impossible to know exactly where to start. But we will start here with this article as a little introduction, and hopefully the little bit of snippets that we've seen so far have given you an inclination and indication to what they're all about. So let us, without further ado, start reading the words that you've probably already started reading, but in my dulcet, wonderful British tones that some of you enjoy in the style of an audiobook. Let's begin. Think all of your ideas are your own. Think you can go your own way and everything will be okay. Or is somebody watching you, corralling you back into the fold? We still hear people talk about the Tavistock Institute's social engineering, propaganda, and mind control from time to time, but are they being paranoid? Is Tavistock just affecting British people, not just British people, they affect the people of the globe? And, you know, the umbrella company, or the organizations that fall under the Tavistock umbrella rather, is long and endless almost, but they have a lot of corporations and organizations under their umbrella, as we will discover as we progress. But as I said, is Tavistock just affecting British people, or is it time overdone for? Are the fears of mind control just rants of unhinged lunatics, or maybe YouTubers that live in Toronto and operate out of a basement producing shit video productions on their cellular technology for your handful of viewers that watching pleasure? But as I said, there is an awful lot in Tavistock and reality that is very, very important to understand. And if or not you are beginning to jump on the mind control thought train, that you have indeed been programmed to behave in the way you do. Hopefully, if you don't think that by now, hopefully by the end of this, and by the end of this series of 2 weeks of tea, where we have been discovering and looking at a few techniques and methods behind MK Ultra and such forth, as well as the fun we had looking at time travel. But Tavistock, back to the article as I am digressing, is one institution that is to core to global social engineering, and it is based in Sussex but has a much wider reach than just Britain. So it is core to social engineering, and the Tavistock Organization Institute was founded in the 20s, and ever since the 1920s, almost everything that has transpired in society has been manufactured by the Tavistock think tank of manipulation, folks. This is it. This is the real rabbit hole that you need to open your eyes and pay attention to, because understanding the methods and the fact that there are institutes like Tavistock out there that are designed to do nothing more than find ways to control each and every one of us. But people tend to think that Tavistocking as being almost synonymous with programmed behavior modification and the creation of popular culture trends. and we will hopefully look shortly at just some of the popular cultural trends that Tavistock did produce, one of which the Beatles. But anyway, that's whetting your appetite for some future content in this episode, so stay tuned. The Tavistock was largely responsible for the US populace changing their minds and becoming willing for the country to enter World War One. The program is under the Special Intelligence Service branch of MI6, which is the highest secret service in the British governmental agencies there over in the UK, and they're led to the Office of Naval Intelligence and the CIA's infamous mind control program under Dr. Gottlieb, MK Ultra. There you go, guys. MK Ultra is the key to understanding society. And there I am rapping the white boy TSP in his basement, keeping it thrifty. You Google motherfuckers, they are fucking with me. Checking with my mic. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, sorry about that poor white boy rap there for you guys, and hopefully that didn't pollute your ears. But MK Ultra is the key to understanding everything, I believe, guys. And once you kind of realize the methods of MK Ultra and Monarch programming and see them for yourself, then you will realize that your social media news feed on whatever platform you do decide to socially surf your friends lists, then that is designed purposefully to make you behave the way you are. Copying and pasting bunnies and changing what they're holding, sharing and agreeing, and giving amens on command. That's all your triggers, guys. And you all, if you did share and behave that way by agreeing with things that you see on your social media, you will have inadvertently been fallen under the spell of mind control. And we will look a little bit later at Tavistock and their connection to memes. They're not harmless things that are fun to share. They are mind control devices and the platform for propaganda to be spread. But MK Ultra is something we have spent a lot of attention in recent weeks looking at, and it all generates from Tavistock. But the effects are not regulated to a few victims of such cruel programs or people who did their sensitivity training through Islan, or however you say that word, and got hooked into following programs headed by intelligence agents, or took their freely distributed LSD and then burned out. And this is kind of why we're following on from Tavistock, because Tavistock influenced not only the Beatles, but they also influenced Laurel Canyon to produce the likes of the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Byrds, all those kind of psychedelic crooners from the 60s that changed the minds of the masses. But whoever you are, Tavistock has influenced your life immensely. Not just you, mine also. Probably not as much as some authors claim, but maybe more than the authors claim, because maybe the authors are being paid to make you believe, not believe they haven't influenced you as much, if you get what I'm saying. Who claim Tavistock with an evil degree of power. Though as an outsider, I can't personally say where the sinister cut-off point is. Sorry, this is getting a bit squinty again. I don't know what happens every time I do start these recordings. All of a sudden, the words become phasey. So there's a picture of a London bus on London Bridge and people walking blissfully across, unaware that Tavistock has manipulated their life. But a history of important figures, connection with the Tavistock Institute, is beginning a few years. We have to go to look a few years before it's originally begun with the Wellington House Propaganda Bureau. So successful authors propped up by the government have always played a large part in creating public opinion and mood. The authors there were including Thomas Hardy, Rudyard Kipling, none other than one of my particular favorite authors, H.G. Wells, Arthur Conan Doyle, and many, many others. And at the time, books were very, very popular forms of entertainment because movies, television, radio, stuff like that back then didn't really exist. Although I believe there were sort of movie theaters and stuff, but the mainstream got most of their influence from books. That was the entertainment of the time. And in the 30s, radio broadcasting become very popular. And we look a little bit about Tavistock's influence in a certain Orson Welles reading of an author we just mentioned, H.G. Wells' classic War of the Worlds. But if Tavistock is synonymous with the science of manipulating the mass psychology, the one character within that matrix is Edward Bernays, who you may have heard of in that little previous snippet of information for you. Who was Sigmund Freud's convening nephew, who literally created public relations? Another key member of the controlling class was celebrated journalist Walter Lippmann. They teamed up to create the invisible government, the shadow government, which functioned as a mold for public opinion. As Bernays explained, their intense methods of propaganda are undeniable and now ubiquitous. Hard word to say. Ubiquitous. Fuck, I butchered that. Anyway, but back in 1921, the Marks of Tavistock donated a building to study the effects of shell shock on the unfortunate soldiers that had come back from the trenches in WW1 who had post traumatic stress disorder, although at the time, post stress disorder wasn't a diagnosed condition, but that was what they were studying. These soldiers that had post traumatic stress from being in WW1, and they realized that stress and trauma will damage the mind enough. And once the damaged mind has been damaged to the point that it can then be manipulated and manufactured and molded with a desired string of command and programs. But anyway, here's where it gets interesting. Because after they started experimenting on the shell shocked soldiers of WW1, whose lives were torn asunder by the horrors they had been put part of, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds pitched in too. They not only tried to help the soldiers, but studied their breaking point in how to use that knowledge. And again, offering help is a very, very big part of becoming a handler in Monarch and MK Ultra brainwashing mind control methods. We're here to help you. Don't worry. We've got you. We've got your back. We're going to get you back on your feet. Don't you worry. That reassurance, that caring, that love bombing kind of mentality, making the false savior as your unforeseen. Once you see them as somebody that is there to sort of have your best interests in heart, then you kind of lower your defenses to that person. So that's why they pretend to help. And we're going to see at the end of this just what Tavistock are up to these days and just who they're trying to help and what they're trying to help them achieve as part of their latest social engineering programming. Think rainbows and unicorns, folks. Something I've talked about a lot, but not so much recently. But back to the article. For example, they didn't want them to talk under torture. Keeping secret information secret was paramount, making people want to keep it secret, or in fact, to want anything Tavistock desired was a requirement. A Tavistock clinic began in 1922 under the direction of Bernays and deputy direction of Brigadier General John Rawlings Rees as a branch of the British Army Bureau of Psychological Warfare, and that researched the human psychology and methods of mind control. So back in the 20s, before World War II, before Paperclip, before Montauk was opened, before the MK Ultra experimentationing, the good old Tavistock Institute back in the 20s were beginning to formulate and perfect
these methods and conduct experimentation on unwilling, unsuspecting, unfortunate victims of the war. Mind control through destabilization, and we are in a period of destabilization and disruption at the moment. And this is why I've noticed how people in the period of the COVID era have been, they've changed, and how I can see that people are being manipulated is very, very, very apparent and very, very evident when I do study the news feed, which I kind of really don't bother looking at so much anymore because it is too much of buying into their controlling system. So the less you spend on it, the less you will be under their influence. Um, but as I said, they are controlling the minds through social media. You can believe me or you cannot believe me, but it's there for you to see if you choose to see it. None are more blind than those that refuse to see, as the saying goes. And another one we might be able to put in before we do continue that is of relevance is sometimes you can lead the horse to water, but the water may not be drunk by the horse if it doesn't choose to drink. But anyway, one methodology they uncovered involved keeping people traumatized, maybe keeping them traumatized with the repetitive rhetoric of the official narrative of a pandemic, perhaps. But keeping people traumatized, such as we experience if we watch the nightly news. And again, the news is all about doom and gloom until the end, when they may sort of show a very heartwarming snippet of 30 seconds footage of a fireman rescuing a cat out of a tree or something, or some kid with cancer that got to go to Six Flags and roller coaster, some shit like that, that makes you feel a little bit better, but the doom and gloom has already been implanted. The fear is there, the trauma is circulating. But what we experience daily is something like the psychic driving that Ewan Cameron eventually used in Canada, repeating shocking events that tear us down. Again, 9/11, they repeated shocking events over and over and over and over and over again on mainstream media. It was blanket coverage for the duration of that day. It was almost impossible to turn on any TV network and not see what was going on in Lower Manhattan on that particular September Tuesday. But this is what they do. They replay the trauma over and over again, and it keeps us in a perpetual state of fear. To know the ins and outs of waging and countering psychological warfare they experienced on people domestically, to learn what the limits are, how people behave, what would make them break down if they were captured, if too much was asked of them on the front, if they were told lies or their confidence undermined. Strangely, they wanted to learn how to create fascism and apply it within the United States. In 1932, that is, psychiatrist Kurt Lewin from Germany took over as director of the Tavistock Clinic, then went to America to set up the Harvard Psychology Clinic. Yes, that's where Timothy Leary and Richard Albert, aka Ramdas, would do their things with psychedelics. And that was when the 60s come around, and once they realized that psychedelic drugs could change the mind enough to be susceptible to altered thoughts and processing, that's why they distributed it then to the masses along with psychedelic music. But, and it is any wonder Reese's Tavistock method was about controlling the environment set and setting to break people's old ways down and substitute them with new ways, as encouraged by peer pressure and deliverance of that lifestyle or desired control by people of influence like movie stars or rock stars, which is why the 60s was, and all those bands were very much used. And we mentioned yesterday that after JFK's assassination, the traumatic event everybody saw and watched and witnessed, times changed in the United States. Sorry, I've got hiccups again. But isn't that somewhat similar to the news stories we're told by CNN, in which we are expected to believe on completely opposing variation after another without backing facts or proof. The people who see through the propaganda then are threatened if they post their analysis on YouTube. How demoralizing. And I would be one of those people who are threatened through propaganda. And the propaganda is a form of passive censorship, shadow banning, and the behavioral patterns of the artificial intelligent algorithmic handler that resides within my cellular smart technology. Surveillance monitoring advanced research technology is the acronym of SMART. If you didn't already know that, and you should do, because I've told you at least 3 or 4 times in the last week or so what that means. But anyway, in 1938, President Roosevelt allowed Winston Churchill's Special Operations Executive Control into the US, and they formed the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA, and it's something I can't remember. Operational Secret Service, I think it stood for. Forget what it is now. That acronym. Talking of acronyms, but sorry for that. Somebody in the comments let me know if that is what it meant. But anyway, that was disbanded and reformed and rebranded into the CIA. But occult racism and magic boxes. Tavistock joined forces during WW2 with the Rockefeller Foundation, who was funding both sides of that particular global conflict, a little bit like they're doing now, I'm sure. And to experiment with psychotropic substances, a Denositan ISIS priesthood occult review was in progress. Sorry, I couldn't read that. Um, dis Dysnonism. Dysnonicism. There we go. Sorry, I wanted to get that one out. It was a little bit squinty. But the occult bureaus in intelligence, both British and American, had plenty to do. And Hitler's underground occult practices certainly kept them on their toes. The British and Germans claimed dominance based on theosophical theosophical ideas of Aristophos. Oh my God, these words are doing my head in. Um, Arisophy, superiority based on their ancestral root race. And again, the Germans thought that they were God's chosen people. And again, excuse me for not being able to read those words. There, I do have difficulties with some words. But anyway, they employed another weird word, eno chinon, Enoch, Enochian magic. There you go, like Enoch. There he is. Enochian magic in practice as their espionage tool and as propellant for another word, epricism. Since the Elizabethan era, they combined psychic methods with physical tools to create psychotronic weaponry. They used pseudo-scientific magic boxes that agents used to focus their mind power to influence people. And nowadays, those pseudo-scientific magic boxes are known as memes, the things that you copy, paste, share, and agree with on your social media platform daily. Tell me there isn't a day that goes by that you don't share or agree with something that had been planted and designatedly placed within your newsfeed. But during World War II, employees were encoded. No, they're not encoded. My God, my eyes are getting all blurry again, very, very badly. Ens cone. You read that word. But during WW2, employees were in all the British Army units as well as the Allied Command and NATO. The Tavistock crew continued to grow in prominence, controlling the World Federation of Mental Health. The Tavistock Institute opened in 1947 as a non-profit, which is a lot of profit to be made in a non-profit organization. And this again is a way to sort of fund and hide in plain sight sinister and tyrannical goings on behind the guise of a non-profit organization. But they put out the journals of human relations and evolution, and research is such topics as economics, organizational behavior, and sociology. There's some more buses, taxis, and British flags in London there. But in 1945, my apologies, Dr. Rees's book was published, The Shaping of Psychiatry by War, focusing on a shocked, a weakened, and insane society willing to go along with what they are told. Masks are good. Wear a mask. Social distance. 6 feet apart. What part of stay the fuck home don't you understand? He called for a mobilizing psychiatric asset to force the change on people he felt was necessary, such as if they were so neurotic as to strike for higher pay from their employers. Psychiatrist Kurt Lewin's book, Time, Perspective, and Moral, is eerie. He says to undermine a group you want to control, keep them uncertain about their status, vacillating between hope and fear. Hopes that the pandemic will end soon, the fear that it will never end. Get the picture, people, you're beginning to see. During the Korean War, it started in 1950, Tavistock methods of mind control were employed on soldiers to, among other things, prevent them from breaking down if detained as prisoner of war. It's connected in the States to the Sanford Research Institute, Changing Images of Man. Esalen, psychotropic warfare, and many other such organizations, including RAND, um, Herman Kahn of How I Learned to Tavistock Institute, Social Engineering of the Masses. I'm guessing that's a link to click there, by Daniel Estulin, rather emotionally details the vast machinery they have in place. My God, my eyes are absolutely gone to pot right now. Your life. When checking your beliefs you've picked up, check out to see if they arose from any of those organizations, and that will be the first clue that they have been created to deliberately influence you in dubious ways. Assets involved with the CIA have generally been required to study the methodology through such organizations. Big Ben and the bridge there, London, black and white picture, very beautiful. Moving on. Conservative critics of Tavistock, such as the sensationalist over the top author John Coleman, say its basic plan is to break down individual will and all that supports the individual, such as the nuclear family, ethnic identity, and church, by creating instability with wild sex and consciousness explorations. They undermine people's solid psychological foundation. Today, the Tavistock Institute operates a $6 billion a year network of foundations in the United States. All of it funded by you guys out there in the United States who pay your taxes. 10 major institutions are under the direct control of Tavistock Institute, with 400 subsidiaries and 3,000 other study groups around the world whose design, purpose, and sole intent is to control each and every one of us, guys. $6 billion a year to control each and every one of us. Are we barking up the wrong tree here, guys, when that much money is being thrown at something in these institutes whose purpose is to control our minds? Would it be therefore unfeasible to contemplate the fact that maybe with all that money being spent in all these organizations, then our minds are indeed being controlled by these individuals and these institutes? Copy and share and agree if you agree, and 99% of you probably won't be brave enough, but the 1% of you are brave enough to copy, paste, share, and agree. Give me an amen. Cults. Rather than sticking to Britain, Tavistock's fingers are everywhere in American education, Corporate training, this is the big one. Presidential policy, agriculture, drugs, health organizations, and public opinion. Corporations put employees through leadership programs similar to EST and Landmark, in which the personality is broken down and rebuilt in the way that parrots the given memes. Memetics guys talking about this. And it is something very much that does happen. I've mentioned a couple of times, although many of you might not have remembered because it was a while ago, that when you do go to work for a big corporation, you essentially set foot in a little privately run dictatorship, because when you go to work you kind of sometimes have to check in. They give you an ID badge sometimes. You have to click it at the gate. There's sometimes a security guard or somebody there that monitors you going in and out, a little bit like crossing through a border from one country to another. And when you're in that place, you kind of have to give away all your beliefs and sort of personal traits and sort of fall in with the model employee. And dare you go against the grain of that model employee, then you might find yourself terminated. And something I used to enjoy greatly as a youngster was going to these jobs with the sole intent of getting terminated, because I used to live on the welfare system a little bit, because I used to hate the system in anti-establishmentist. I thought, fuck you, I'm not going to work to pay you taxes. The taxes that you steal from other people can pay me, which is a little bit bad on the other taxpayers. But you've got to kind of fuck with the government the way they fuck with you, fighting fire with fire, so to speak. So I used to live off of the welfare system for quite some time, and I used to play it for all the free money I could get. If they want to steal money, then I want to steal money from them. Robin Hood sort of scenario there. But every now and then they'd make you get a job. They wouldn't let you go on unemployment forever, and sooner or later you would get assigned a back to work officer who would then sort of give you interviews, and sooner or later you would eventually have a job that you couldn't refuse, otherwise they'd stop your benefits. But once you got that job, sort of give it a week or two, I would then go out of my way to get terminated. My God, if I had a YouTube channel back in those days and used to have a hidden camera, the fun and frolicking we'd have had seeing me getting terminated for jobs would be fun. But that is a little bit of digressive information there. But it is an example of what happens with these corporations, that when you go and big work for some of these places, you become molded into the desired employee kind of persona. And something I always used to, I worked in pharmaceuticals for nearly 10 years, big organizations, and something I always used to find a rhetoric that is often repeated by some of these people that have been really programmed into the corporate world was, oh, you know, we work hard, but boy, do we play hard. And every now and then we'd have these sort of little getaway retreats or team building exercises, shit like that. And really and truly, their definition of playing hard was having about 3 or 4 Stella Artois and maybe a couple of shots that they had to make the whole bar and surrounding people aware that they were taking shots, and then get drunk, dance to shit music like Top Loader and Coldplay, while talking about work all the time. That is their definition of playing hard. And this is an example of how sort of mimetic mind control in social engineering works within industry, and how industries and all these big corporations does sort of create and throw out droned humans. Um, but anyway, secret societies, we got well off topic there. But this puts one in mind of the Osiris brainwashing in the rituals, which create rebirth into secret societies as a new man, the innate beholden to his new parents. And this is a little bit it. You go into a corporation, they sort of rebirth you into that corporation's ideology, and the new parents for your team leaders and your supervisors and such forth. Such training is required for large numbers of people through various structures for people entering careers in education, the military, the government, psychiatry, economics, etc. People get breed and cloned into industrial slaves. This ritual is part of why the ISIS cult is so powerful. And they're not talking about the radicalized Islamic State fundamentalist terrorist group. They're talking about Isis, the Egyptian goddess. in the magics and stuff surrounding that. But that would go really off topic, and I really need to kind of finish this before my eyes, and I'm sure I'm going to go blind by the end of the week. If or not this is the algorithm doing something to my screen to make it blurry. If it's blurry for you or not, I don't know, but it might just be old age and eyesight combined. But the principles are explicitly fuck what happened there explicitly fraudulent, Sigmund Freud, and his goals include sneaky behind the scenes guidance of societies across the globe through their cultural trends. uh, are you really you? The way you dress, your music, and popular phrases, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit was a phrase I did see circulating an awful lot last week on my social media phase. And it's one of those little sort of phrases. It kind of does niggle and annoy me because where else do you throw up? All puke originates from the mouth. And if or not you spit or swallow, a little bit like some of you ladies when you're pleasuring your gentleman for his birthday or Christmas, you might be faced with the choice of spitting and swallowing. The same thing with puke. Puke comes up in your mouth. There's no way. No one's puking out of their ears or out of their eyes. Or, I mean, sometimes puke will come out of your nostril. I will attain to that, as happened to me and probably you. But puke literally does always originate from your mouth. So there's no need to really sort of kind of insinuate or add that to the phrase is, yeah, I like puked a little bit in my mouth. Well, of course you did. It's like saying I breathed through my nose, or I saw with my eyes, or I heard with my ears a little bit. Um, and another popular phrase that was circulating at the beginning of the pandemic that was Tavistock inspired, emplaced, implanted into newsfeed, and then repeated as part of the rhetoric to try and convince the minds of the masses to stay the fuck home. What part of that don't you understand? And I always picture that triggered lady, you know, the popular one I'm talking about, saying it like that. But the way you dress, your music, your popular phrases, everything that you like has been part and parcel of the Tavistock Institute, and you may have been programmed accordingly to like these things. And a little bit like in Huxley's Brave New World, they bred alphas, betas, deltas, and omegas. And there was another one at the lowest level, which I forget now, and they were kind of like the slaves and manual labor workers. But we've all been programmed one way or another. And many of these phrases, as we just digressed again, as we tend to do with these articles, but I do like to add a little bit of my thought and opinion to these articles. And again, sometimes I use these articles to sort of give me a little bit of assistance in delivering the information that I want to. And some of these, again, are the sort of articles in information that I've read, this given me my education on this topic. But the phrases that we said may well have originated from a decision in an office somewhere in an old man's mind as he tapped his pipe on the table with self-satisfied grin, a little bit like the Dr. Evil in Austin Powers, or maybe even the Emperor in Star Wars. And don't forget, guys, Saturday night, Star Wars Decoded, TSP's penultimate night of 2 weeks of tea, 2 year TSP TV celebrations. You know this by now. But anyway, as I said, it's probably not so much anymore from the mind of a old man smoking a pipe. It comes from the mind of an artificial intelligent algorithm, and you have your own personal little artificial intelligent algorithm in the palm of your hand or within your close proximity right now, paying attention to what you're watching now, and may or may not target some other um, designed and similar content to you as a result. Let me know if any of you do start seeing anything with regards to Tavistock popping up in your news feeds on your YouTube homepage, stuff like that. But as I said, it's all come from Tavistock. It's all been created and generated once upon a time by old men in offices with pipes, but now it's all been handed over to our good old artificial friends, the algorithms. Or do you scoff at trends, just say no to fads, and remain untouched by peer pressure? Do you? Do you? Now, something I'm not kind of making myself sound special and that. I've always been a little bit of a loner. I've always kind of been into my own things. I do sort of generate and find entertainment of my own and produce my own kind of entertainment. And sometimes I am my own best company. And a little bit in TSP TV, I put all of this together from intros to editing to finding the articles to recording and eventually uploading and presenting it to you. This is a lot of it is all of my own devices. I haven't really been, I mean, I'm not saying I haven't been, but as I said, I'm not a follower. I'm not a fad. I'm not out for social validation. I don't care if you smash the like, hit the bell, subscribe, or share this video. All I really hope to achieve from these presentation is to just share information on a subject I feel more people need to have information on, and I'm trying to use the the internet as its intended purpose as a way to share information. And even on some of my social media personal interest groups, I'm just sharing my enthusiasm and passion and knowledge for certain subjects like 1980s football or retro cartoons. I share that passion and belief and interest with other peoples that share that passion. And I like to think that that is a sort of healthier way to distribute dopamine, if you can, in social interaction, is so much more wholesome than artificial interaction. Although we are kind of using social media to interact with this presentation, we are kind of a little bit social in the fact that we are enjoying this in real time. For those of you who still are paying attention and watching live, some of you may be watching a replay. But that was that article, which I'm also glad to get through. Sorry if I did get a little bit lost and butchered there. Some of the words, and as I said, my eyesight, I really need to find my reading glasses, and maybe I'll have a look at them before we get into our next article, which is going to be long.
The global elite rely on a number of organizations to push their agenda. Many of us know about the work of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, and a handful of others. The Tavistock Institute for Human Relations is included and instrumental in this collection of subversive organizations. However, we rarely, if ever, hear about its role in mass brainwashing and shaping of public opinion. As I covered in a previous episode, the elite are active on several fronts to reduce world population and basically turn the planet into a lockdown, high-tech prison where a demoralized and reduced population is completely under the iron-fisted rule of a world government. This long-term agenda would not be possible without first conditioning and brainwashing populations into accepting and even celebrating their loss of freedom and servitude. The control agenda of the Tavistock Institute was first exposed in 1969 by author and researcher John Coleman. His monograph, The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, Shaping the Moral, Cultural, Political, and Economic Decline of the United States of America, revealed deep connections between this organization and the ruling elite. Tavistock emerged in 1921 at the Wellington House in England. This seemingly innocuous name served as a cover for Britain's War Propaganda Bureau. David Lloyd George, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was given the task of setting up a British War Propaganda Bureau. George appointed the writer and fellow Liberal MP Charles Masterman to head the organization. Members included H.G. Wells and Rudyard Kipling. A number of writers were put to work cranking out pro-war propaganda to promote and demand participation in the so-called Great War, now known as the First World War. According to Coleman, the Tavistock Institute at Sussex University in London is owned and controlled by the Royal Institute for International Affairs, also known as the Chatham House. This is the epicenter of the British establishment. Its meetings are secret, like those held by the Bilderberg Group. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is said to be based on the King Arthur myths. Financial backers of this organization included the Astor family. Its American equivalent, the Council on Foreign Relations, was funded by J.P. Morgan, Jacob Schiff, Paul Warburg, John D. Rockefeller, and others. The Wellington House role in the effort to manipulate both British and American citizens and demand their unwavering support for mass murder and sacrifice was headed up by the Viscount Baron Rothermere and Alfred Charles William Harmsworth, the first Viscount of Northcliffe. Northcliffe was essential to the brainwashing project. He owned the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror newspapers. Rothermere was the chairman of the Daily Mail and General Trust. According to Coleman's research, Tavistock received its funding from the British royal family and later the Rothschilds, to whom Lord Northcliffe was related through marriage. It also received funding from the Rockefeller family trusts and the Milner Group. The royal family played an instrumental role in guiding the agenda, according to Coleman's research. At least 2 Americans were involved in this project of mass manipulation of the public, Walter Lippmann and Edward Bernays. Lippmann, who would later introduce the concept of Cold War, was a notable member of the Council on Foreign Relations, established in 1921. He played a significant role in the Woodrow Wilson decision to get the United States involved in the war in Europe, despite having promised not to. Edward Bernays, known as the father of spin, was a master propagandist and public relations wizard. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Bernays called the effort to brainwash the public psychological warfare. In 1937, Tavistock based its operations on German philosopher Oswald Spengler's book, The Decline of the West. Spengler argued the West is in rapid decline and ruled by what he called Caesarism, the state's prerogative of violence. Spengler said humanity would ultimately return to a more animalistic state, a sort of advanced primitivism. Spengler's analysis is hardly a match for the Tavistock agenda implemented by the elite, the British royal family, and globalist one world organizations. Tavistock took what it wanted from Spengler, the theory civilization is doomed and must be replaced with a different system. Not the primitivist social utopia imagined by Spengler, but rather a one-world globalist totalitarian government set on reducing population and controlling all aspects of society. At its core, Spengler's thesis holds that alien hordes will arrive in America in increasing numbers, thus leading to a fall of Western civilization and its culture, law, and ethics. This legacy is linked to the Roman Empire and medieval Western Christendom that emerged from the Middle Ages to experience a number of transformative episodes such as the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and the advancement of scientific knowledge. In Europe, large numbers of Africans, Arabs, and others are flooding the continent, resulting in social and political chaos as 2 widely different cultures clash. This highly disruptive force has resulted in severe political polarization and the rise of nationalist groups opposed to continued immigration and asylum status. Wellington House Board members Rothmere, Northcliffe, Lipman, and Bernays also praised a book by Correa Mullen Walsh, The Climax of Civilization, published in 1917. Walsh argues civilization has reached the end of its centuries-long use of natural resources and is plagued by irreversible social and moral decline. The author discusses topics that would later be taken up by the Club of Rome. The massive propaganda effort undertaken by Tavistock during the First World War went into overdrive in the United States. By far, most Americans opposed entering the war, and Tavistock and others worked to change this. In Britain, it only took a couple of years of relentless media propaganda to turn the British people from opponents of the war into enthusiastic advocates and participants. The same model was used to get the United States into the war. Propaganda warps perception and introduces new terms to demonize a shifting array of opponents. For instance, in America, the Tavistock propaganda effort labeled war opponents as isolationists, a term that would later be used by Roosevelt to manipulate the nation into fighting the Second World War. Propaganda portrayed isolationism, which is in actuality peaceful and mutually beneficial relations, and aversion to becoming entangled in the affairs of other nations, as nothing short of treason. At the time, President Wilson preached the idea of a one-world government. He managed to lower, if not destroy, tariffs that protected the American economy and worker. This so-called free trade, now centered to the globalist ideology, resulted in American workers and companies being displaced and ruined by foreign trade. Most notably, British products that were made in India by cheap labor and exported to the United States. In order to make up for this lost tariff income, the U.S. passed the Federal Income Tax Law in 1913, thus passing the responsibility to pay for the lavish spending habits of professional politicians and their benefactors, that is to say, corporations and banks. As Coleman notes, this mandatory taxation is a Marxist concept not included in the Constitution. Wilson's lowering and removal of tariffs eventually resulted in the creation of globalist trade agreements under NAFTA, GATT, and the World Trade Organization. These trade agreements between governments and transnational corporations have resulted in dismantling the middle class, a key objective of Tavistock and its globalist supporters. Ushered in by Bill Clinton and his wife, not only displaced and impoverished American workers, it also produced a destructive effect on Mexican agricultural and small business operations, which in turn helped produce a surge of illegal aliens crossing the border in search of work and handouts by the state. In addition, this supposed free trade agreement provided a mechanism for large corporations to invest in China's growing economy. In return, China was allowed to access American markets. This further displaced workers who were unable to compete with what amounts to slave labor in China. Tavistock and the Wellington House also pushed for the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, the same year an income tax was forced on the American people. The destruction of the U.S. economy and the gradual impoverishment of the American middle class would not have been possible without the creation of the Federal Reserve, which controls and manipulates the money supply to benefit the 0.1% through ongoing upward distribution of wealth. Both Lippmann and Bernays were involved in this banker cartel consolidation of wealth and assets. They established the National Citizens League, a rather transparent oxymoron, under the direction of Samuel Untermyer, a prominent New York lawyer who pushed the Federal Reserve Act and associated legislation, including the Clayton Bill. Before the Federal Reserve Act could be signed by Wilson, it was gone over with a fine-tooth comb by Colonel Edward Mandell House and the British oligarchy represented by the banker J.P. Morgan. In 1957, Dr. William Sargent of the Tavistock Institute, who reportedly worked in tandem with the CIA on its MK-Ultra brainwashing experiments at the time, wrote a book with an improbable title, Battle for the Mind, A Physiology of Conversion and Brainwashing, How Evangelists, Psychiatrists, Politicians, and Medicine Men Can Change Your Beliefs and Behavior. Sargent explains how alien beliefs can be implanted in the human brain through induced fear, anger, and excitement. He writes that of the results caused by such disturbances, the most common is temporarily impaired judgment and heightened suggestibility. This results in what psychologists call herd instinct, and it is most prevalent during war, epidemics, and all similar periods of common danger, which increase anxiety and opens up the individual to mass suggestibility. Jim Keith, the author of Mass Control: Engineering Human Consciousness, describes Tavistock as a collaborative effort of British military intelligence and the psychiatric establishment. Keith writes that Tavistock's influence reaches the mass corporate media, corporations, governments, and the psychiatric establishment. Coleman has said the moral, spiritual, racial, economic, cultural, and intellectual bankruptcy we are now in the midst of today is the product of a carefully planned Tavistock program. In 1928, Bernays wrote in his book Propaganda that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of the country. This legacy of lies and manipulation in the name of war and a totalitarian world government is alive and well today. Every day we are slammed with fake news guiding us along a prearranged path toward our ultimate enslavement and the prospect of never-ending war and conflict. I believe we are heading into a new war, the ultimate conflict. The final push to have us accept, either through directed propaganda or physical violence by the state, a suicidal showdown between the U.S., Russia, and China. If we survive this engineered war, we will all be swept into bondage. For as Henry Kissinger so aptly noted, if the orchestrated crisis, or a number of them piled one upon the other, are effective, the American people will run to the state and beg for protection.
Manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. This passage was written by Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud and a pioneering mind behind advertising, modern propaganda, and the field of public relations. Bernays' influence was enormous. Relying heavily on the insights of his uncle, he developed highly successful manipulation techniques which are still used today, not only by companies to sell consumer products, but also by the powers that be to, in the words of Bernays, control and regiment the masses. In this video, we'll explore some of Bernays' most intriguing ideas, paying particular attention to his insights on how group psychology can be used to control and manipulate the masses. In his classic work, Group Psychology and the Analysis of the Ego, Sigmund Freud described group psychology as being concerned with the individual man as a member of a race, of a nation, of a caste, of a profession, of an institution, or as a component part of a crowd of people who have been organized into a group at some particular time for some definite purpose. In other words, group psychology attempts to understand how an individual's behavior, thoughts, and emotions change when becoming a part of a group. The tendency of human beings to form groups was selected for in our evolutionary past due to the survival benefits it offered. Ancient humans who organized into tribes were more likely to survive and reproduce in the harsh environments in which they lived. However, with the help of modern technologies, humans today have transformed the environment in a manner which renders the survival value of tribal organization obsolete. But with that said, the ancient and instinctual pull of tribal organization still looms large in the lives of most, with many people today identifying and hence stereotyping both themselves and others based on things such as race, class, gender, nationality, religion, or the political party or ideology to which one adheres. This continued proclivity to engage in group identification is, according to Bernays, a function of the enlarged sense of self-importance that individuals derive from identifying with a potentially powerful mass. Just as the wolf pack is many times as strong as the combined strength of its individual members, so too the individual senses the potential power of the group, and it derives feelings of potency in identifying with it. Beginning in the late 19th century, a number of thinkers, most notably Freud and Gustave Le Bon, attempted to understand why people engage in group identification and how group identification affects one's mind and behavior. As Bernays noted, the insights that emerged from this study caught the attention of those in positions of power who wanted to expand their control of societies. These people saw the potential of taking the theoretical insights of group psychology and transforming them into practical methods that could be used to manipulate the masses from outside of the public's eye, a task which formed the basis of Bernays' work in public relations. As Bernays explained in his book, Propaganda, the systematic study of mass psychology revealed the potentialities of invisible government of society by manipulation of the motives which actuate man in the group. These studies established that the group has mental characteristics distinct from those of the individual, and is motivated by impulses and emotions which cannot be explained on the basis of what we know of individual psychology. So the question naturally arose: if we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, is it not possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowing it? The great potential of using insights from group psychology to control the masses is partly a function of the fact that an individual can be influenced by a group or crowd even when physically isolated. As Bernays pointed out in his book, Crystallizing Public Opinion, a crowd does not mean merely a physical aggregation of a number of persons. The crowd is rather a state of mind. So long as one engages in group identification, their mind and behavior will be changed by the enduring influence of group psychology. even with no other members of the group physically present. To understand how the tendency of human beings to engage in group identification renders the masses manipulable, we must turn to one of Freud's ideas which heavily influenced the manipulation techniques developed by Bernays. In his book Propaganda, published in 1928, Bernays explained, "It is chiefly the psychologists of the school of Freud who have pointed out that many of man's thoughts and actions are compensatory substitutes for desires which he has been obliged to suppress. A thing may be desired not for its intrinsic worth or usefulness, but because he has unconsciously come to see in it a symbol of something else, the desire for which he is ashamed to admit to himself. A man buying a car may think he wants it for purposes of locomotion. He may really want it because it is a symbol of social position, an evidence of his success in business, or a means of pleasing his wife. What Freud suggested is that often there is a divorce between one's conscious thoughts and feelings and desires which do not fit with one's self-image and which are therefore suppressed. This fact, Bernays recognized, renders human beings manipulable. For what it implies is that if one can design propaganda or psychological operations that bypass the conscious and rational faculties of the individual, targeting instead suppressed emotions and hidden desires, it is possible to move people to adopt beliefs and behaviors without them being aware of the underlying motivations leading them on. As Bernays explained, men are very largely actuated by motives which they conceal from themselves. It is evident that the successful propagandist must understand the true motives, and not be content to accept the reasons which men give for what they do. It is possible, although often difficult, for an individual to become aware of the underlying motives driving their beliefs and actions through honest and critical introspection. However, once one succumbs to the effects of group identification, such critical introspection becomes nearly impossible. A group is extraordinarily credulous and open to influence, wrote Freud. It has no critical faculty. In identifying with a group, the individual subordinates self-analysis and a discerning search for the truth in favor of maintaining group interests and cohesion. And with their critical capacities weakened by the influence of group psychology, they become highly susceptible to psychological operations designed to target suppressed or unconscious desires and emotions. In the modern day, there appears to be forces operating through the mainstream media and popular culture which are attempting to increase the individual's proclivity to engage in certain types of group identification, namely, identifications that divide the population into conflicting groups. This phenomenon has potentially dire consequences for both the stability and freedom of a society, as it allows those in power to institute the age-old tactic of divide and conquer. In his book, Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli noted that those who have held power over a population have long realized that a population united is always stronger than those who rule over it, and thus stretching back into ancient times, rulers have sought to divide the many and weaken the force which was strong while it was united through the use of those methods which promote division. By dividing a population along lines such as race, class, religion, gender, or political preference, or in other words, into groups naturally prone to clash, the effects of group psychology render rational discourse and debate between individuals in these separate groups extremely unlikely. Each group, Bernays wrote, considers its own standards ultimate and indisputable, and tends to dismiss all contrary or different standards as indefensible. Unable to settle differences in opinions via rational discourse, groups whose belief structures clash tend to revert to more destructive means in their attempt to defeat those they perceive as a threat. A society dominated by such groups is thus easily divided in increasingly hostile conflict, and as a result, not only does the population as a whole become weakened, as Machiavelli pointed out, but its eyes are diverted away from the actions of those operating behind the scenes, who constitute, in the words of Bernays, the invisible government who controls the destinies of millions. While there is nothing wrong with deriving a sense of belonging based on the commonalities we share with others, it is misguided to base our personal identity primarily on our group memberships. In terms of our evolutionary history, It is only fairly recently that we developed the ability to become aware of ourselves as individuals, separate from any group or tribe. This was a crucial development in consciousness, as the existence of a society based on individual rights and personal liberties is dependent on a population which has developed this capacity for individual consciousness, or in other words, on a society of individuals who understand themselves and treat others as individuals first and foremost. As Erich Neumann pointed out in his classic work, The Origins and History of Consciousness, prior to the development of this capacity for individual consciousness, the group and group consciousness were dominant. The individual was not an autonomous, individualized entity with a knowledge, morality, volition, and activity of its own. It functioned solely as a part of the group, and the group, with its superordinate power, was the only real subject. Seen in this light, the proclivity of individuals today to engage in group identification is not only a danger to the freedom and stability of a society, but it is also a regression of consciousness back to a more primitive psychological state, and therefore, from the standpoint of modernity, a pathological tendency that needs to be overcome, or as Sigmund Freud put it. Each individual has a share in numerous group minds, those of his race, of his class, of his creed, of his nationality, etc. And he can also raise himself above them, to the extent of having a scrap of independence and originality.
Okay, guys, we've got good news and bad news in terms of today's presentation. The bad news is, as always, as it seems to be the case with these presentations, no matter how early in the day I start these productions and proceedings, time does get away from me, and partly because Tavistock, as we've mentioned, is a huge rabbit hole, and their connections and ties to lots of other organizations, and their level of influence is immense around the globe at the moment. But we've had a little look there, and as I said, the bad news is that the amount of stuff I have prepared to put into this presentation is gonna have to remain for another time, and here is where the good news to that bad news lies. That other time will be tomorrow, as this will run into a two-parter. We have to talk about Tavistock will continue with some more stuff tomorrow, where we will concentrate on the aftermath of JFK and the psychological, not psychological, well, it was a psychological operation behind the psychedelic hippie movement. Some very startling stuff today, and to get into tomorrow. But back to today, we've looked a little bit at who Tavistock are, where they come from, who's behind them, and some of the things that they do. They are a global societal manipulator of perceptions, mindsets, thought trains, everything. Tavistock have controlled you and me at one point through our lives, and possibly are still controlling and influencing the things we see and do on a daily basis. But this is up to today's time, and bear in mind, they are social engineers. They design in target specifically specific demographics with a desired platform of manipulation, as we will see a little bit tomorrow with the psychedelic hippie influence in the British invasion of the rock scene in the 60s in the aftermath of JFK's assassination. But as I said, they do mold the minds of the masses, and this is what Tavistock are up to now. Now, the NHS, the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, taxpayer funded. Although it isn't taxes that pay for it, we all have to pay national health insurance contributions out of our wages, and that part of our wages is taken. We don't even get the option to pay it. They take it before we get it. So it is publicly funded, and it is also working in conjunction with Tavistock. Now, Tavistock does actually have its own gender identity development clinics and schools and researches, which we possibly can look at more again at great depth if or not time permits tomorrow. But back to today, the Gender Identified Development Service, GIDS, is part of Tavistock and is now part of a British institution and a publicly funded institution, the NHS. And what they are basically doing is programming the minds of the very, very, very young and manipulating the minds into accepting transgenderism. Got an interesting little video we will watch after this that isn't too long, that will just give you a prime example and show you what they are developing there. But the Gender Identity Development Service is for children and young people and their families who experiencing difficulties in the development of their young gender identity. Why are so many young people suffering for gender identity? Because they're being programmed. Because Tavistock doesn't target you and me; it targets everybody, and in this particular, it targets the young, because young, undeveloped minds are the most easiest minds to mold. And of course, with young minds also becomes a very undeveloped brain that is cased and housed within a skull that is not yet fully formed and is thinner than the adult skull, and therefore more susceptible to receiving a electronically delivered wavelengths, EMFs, low waves, high waves, all that stuff. Wi-Fi, 5G, 4 datas, and all this kind of mobile stuff that will be implanted into the brains of the young minds, and those young minds are being controlled and manipulated to adapt and adopt to gender identity, growing up against their gender. Again, part of the destabilization and the disruption of previous values held by society. The upside down in Stranger Things is here. Boys are now girls, girls are now boys, meat is now plants, plants is now meat, yada yada, whoopie woo, ray tay tay. You know the rhetoric of the narrative during COVIDian times. Again, another Tavistock inspired psyop. But by no means all of the children and young people who we see are unhappy with aspects of their body's primary or secondary sex characteristics. Some children who were assigned male, i.e., registered as male when they were born, may not feel like a boy when they are older because they've been brainwashed and manipulated into believing they're a girl through popular targeted mainstream entertainment cartoons, and a little bit like the 60s and the Beatles and the Stones were designed to model behavioral patterns in young people, so too are these targeted pieces of entertainment for young toddlers and children. Rainbows and unicorns. Individuals, you would be wrong. Take a guess right now who orchestrated, coordinated, designed, and delivered that particular movement to society. No prizes. But anyway, um, they may like to feel. Let's go back. Sorry. So obviously, this is what it is. Some children assigned male and registered male when they're born may not feel like a boy when they're old, and that's why I got off topic a little bit. Or they may prefer to dress in clothes or play with toys that other people say are for girls. They may feel or say that they are a girl in the same way some children or young people who were assigned female at birth might feel or say that they are a boy. Others might say that neither boy or girl seems the right word for how they feel about themselves. And again, this is because they've manipulated their minds into believing and thinking that that isn't the own independent thoughts of these individuals. It is being targeted and designed, and this is why you have to pay very strong attention to Tavistock. They are the watchmen that are controlling and generating and engineering our social behavioral patterns. So we need to keep a watchful eye on what they are doing in order to understand how they're manipulating society. We recognize how complex ideas around gender can be, and there is a huge range of human diversity in how people feel and express their gender. Again, manipulation from the Tavistock Institute. Young people who are developing an understanding of their own gender that is different from what everyone had first expected can sometimes find things very tough. Both young people and their families can experience high levels of distress as their gender identity evolves. And this is what we've learned from Tavistock, that their design is to cause distress and disruption to society and societal behavioral patterns. And in particularly, they are distressing and disrupting the behavioral patterns of young undeveloped minds and making them believe that they are the gender that they were not born as. We try to help young people and their families cope with the distress, and again, they've tried to pretend that they're there to help us in order to give us reduce our defense levels and give them a little bit more of an restricted insight to our feelings and that, because they're there to help us, so we can identify with them as someone who's helping us. They don't seem to be a threat to us, so we feel comfortable in their surroundings. But we aim to understand the obstacles standing between young people. And of course, they understand the obstacles because they created the obstacles. So they would know exactly how to deal with them. And how they like to deal with them is by pumping children who are of a prepubescent age with genetic DNA ordering drugs that will prevent them from reaching puberty. And then once they have gone through a transitional period of time of drug taking, they will then be either given estrogen or testosterone as a form of injections to make them more accordance to the gender they were programmed to believe they were. And this is it. We also work with a small number of children who have trans parents whose difficulties are related to their experience of their parents' gender identity or transition. So that was a little bit short one. As I said, we do got a little video here. Now, the other thing that Tavistock also have, Kelly Kebo, she was on a little while ago as a special guest caller, and she talked about her experiences within the Straight Institute, which was pretty much a cult, and that was a cult that was designed, and again, cultish behavior is part and parcel of how they manipulate the masses into their desired mind control patterns. But she was at the Straight organization that was a cult, and it was designed to reprogram behavioral patterns in sort of juvenile delinquents, or kids that are running a little bit amok and getting themselves into trouble, experiencing drugs and things that they shouldn't, criminal activities, such forth, yada yada, woo woo, rated tay. But Tavistock has many institutes very similar to this, and I'm also certain that the Straight Institute was maybe not a direct derivative of Tavistock, but it possibly come from one of the many Tavistock subsidiaries around the world. So as I said, we are going to have a little quick look at a video of a couple of individuals that go and attend the Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service program right now, before we do return to the thrift store studio to be live, because this has been a longer than expected presentation. Let's talk about Tavistock will continue tomorrow in the second part to this stream. But as I said, for now, we are going to go and look at two young individuals that are the product of Tavistock programming, and we will then return to the thrift store. So see you soon, guys.
With TJ. So today we're going to be talking about the fact that TJ got referred to the Tavistock Clinic, which is the children's gender clinic in the UK. So we're going to talk about how he got referred, how long it took to get first appointment, and how the appointments go. First question, so how did you and how can other people get referred to Tavistock? Well, I got referred because I go to this group called Fruitball in Sheffield, and one of the trans members talked to me about it, and they said that they could refer me, and so they did. If it was for someone else, I'd say either go to this group or go to your GP and talk to them about it, like I did, and they helped push the process along, which was really beneficial for me. How long did it take you to get your first appointment? Well, I think I got it last year in May, and then I got my first appointment February the 1st, so I don't know how long that is. Like May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, it's 9 months. Not that bad then. I was supposed to get the first appointment in May this year, but I got it early. I think it was because of the GP pushing it along. exactly, you know. So what was the first appointment like? Like, what did they say or ask you?
Well, it was better than I thought. I thought it was going to be really tense and I'd have to get all these facts thrown at me, but they were really nice. They introduced themselves. I personally have a gender therapist and then a family therapist. They were really nice about it. They asked about my school life, my family, and how I feel in general. Like, a particular question was, on a scale of like 1 to 100, whereabouts do you feel that you want to be the opposite gender to?
Like, sort of what, like, how much do you feel like male? So some people feel like 70%, but there's still a bit like femininity sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I told them that I was very sure, like 98% sure. My mum isn't really fully okay and fully understanding of it, but she was able to get her opinions across because they asked her questions as well. So they were really equal about their questions, and they asked whoever was there and asked if I could bring my other side of the family, which is my dad's family. Yeah, they were really nice about it, really calm, made me feel okay about talking to them.
I think it's pretty cool that they do that though, like bring your mum into it and let her have her, because I think especially with like younger people, it's harder to accept because I think it's like a teenage phase thing, like hormones and obviously hormones, but like you know, like it's, you're confused or whatever. So I think it's nice that they bring in the family and actually speak to them and see how they feel about it, and then they can also, one, like you said, sort of help for them to see like this is actually a thing and it's coming from doctors and professionals and things. So it's like helps them to understand a bit better, and also means that you can sort of work on your relationship and how you can get to like a place where you're both happy and accepting of everything.
Yeah. They also actually gave me a bunch of paperwork, so like nothing scary, but like a little questionnaire to just say how I felt and then how my mum felt, and then I had to give one to my teacher. The teacher had to fill it out, and it was just so it could make the assessment a bit more quicker than what it would be if we didn't have any extra paperwork.
So what's the process like? Is there like a certain amount of appointments or a certain amount of time that you've got to wait, like between certain things?
Well, I was told that it's around a 6-month or 6 appointment kind of assessment. I've recently just found out because this is my third appointment was last month, something like that, and they basically said that I'd finished my first assessment, and I was a bit first assessment, and they said that there is 2 assessments, I think, and the first one is identity assessment, just making sure that, you know,
That you're sure.
Yeah, that everything's okay, that my childhood is alright, that I show strong signs of like being male and no red flags or anything. I should be starting my second assessment, which is the physical assessment, and I think after that it's basically hormone blockers, which will like stop most things happening, like periods.
Basically stop puberty.
Yeah,
is what they do, I think, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think it's a year of that, and then I can go on to testosterone, which is what I want to do. Yeah.
And then after that, it's anything else that you might want, like surgeries or...
Yeah, pretty much.
So to finish off, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself? Maybe sort of what you want out of transition or like future goals, that sort of thing?
Well, personally, I just want to fully transition all the hormone treatments, both the surgeries. Not quite sure which surgery for the bottom one yet, but I'm going to figure that out soon, hopefully. Like a full, complete transition, really.
Right, so that's all the questions that I wanted to ask. Thank you to TJ for coming and talking about it, because I couldn't talk about it personally since I've not been to Tavistock and I've not even been seen by my gender clinic yet. So, thank you again. If you liked the video or you found it useful at all, please give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe down below to see more from me, because I post a video every Sunday. And if you want to, you can also follow me on my social media, it'll be on the screen now. And if you want to as well, you can also follow TJ on Instagram, which will also be on the screen. So thanks for watching, come on journey, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Okay, guys, we are back. We are back. Hopefully, you enjoyed that longer than expected presentation, but hopefully, you found it informative as I did, or I have in the past. And as I said, we do need to pay very, very close and strong attention to the Tavistock Institute and their going ons. Not necessarily gender. Sorry, that's a good point, Maiden. Let me just get rid of the presentation there. And I also need to put the camera back on. There we go. I should have done that before I removed the video. Sorry, Alan Habs, welcome, welcome. Did you hear about the Adamson barbecue opening today? I can't say that I did, but welcome, Alan Habs. If you are arriving, you are a token gusset, which removes the gusset title from Maiden a little bit there. She arrived late, but as I said, it is a Thanksgiving week. People are busy, got stuff going on, I'm sure, south of the border. But Tavistock, what an interesting institute, don't you think, ladies and gentlemen that's watching? Etienne, bonsoir, indeed, the trans apocalypse. So Maiden was mentioning there that some trans people are actually gay and not necessarily gender confused. And as I said, you were a little bit late at the proceedings today. And what the purpose of this sort of presentation was giving you a greater understanding of what Tavistock is. It's very hard to sort of jump into the middle of Tavistock activities without knowing kind of their background, where they're from, what their purpose is. And our whole sole design is to manipulate and create trends, fads, phases, phenomena that will disrupt and distress society as we know it and mold people in to the desired method behavior of that target demographic or designed fad, phase, social movement. Sorry, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know why. I think my chair's a little bit crooked, but still, sorry. So Tavistock that spends $6 billion a year, $6 billion a year, researching how to control mass minds and how to develop the methods and tactics and distribution tools of that desired manipulation and mind control. And they've been doing this for 100 years successfully. They've never had a failure. Everything they've put out has turned to gold pretty much. And this is their latest project, the transgender agenda, transpocalypse, as he said. Now, they are targeting individuals, Maiden, and as I said, this is what Tavistock does. It learns how to control the minds of masses. Now, this was 100 years ago that they started out on their little train, and now we have psychological technology rather that is a sort of psychological evaluation machine that we carry in the palm of our hands, ripe with all the mind control and methods of Tavistock from 100 years that they have been spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on. So you're going to try and tell me that I'm the maniac for telling you that you're under mind control and the globe is under mind control and everybody and everything we've ever done has been a result of manipulation. It's a very, very tough pill to follow. Now, during that little presentation, through a lot of these presentations, I keep mentioning a rhetoric that you might be aware of. Copy, share and agree if you know, or share if you agree. Copy and paste the bunny. 99% of you aren't brave enough. Can I get an amen? Yada yada whoopie-roo. And some of you respond with an amen. And what I'm pointing out is those are your trigger words. These are the brainwashing methods. These are things that are being implemented into your social news media feed. You probably can't go 5 minutes without seeing a copy if you agree, copy and pasted from a friend, share if you agree. 99% of you aren't brave enough. Copy and paste this, copy and paste that. I want to see more of this. I want to see more of that. Why don't you give me your 20 favorite movies? Why don't you answer these quizzes where you give personal information? What they are doing is these are tools to action. These are triggers, and when you respond, and they have the buttons there because they know exactly how you react to that, because that's why they put the reactions. They're not there for your benefit, they're for analytical purposes, to see if you like, dislike, care, love, or hate the content that they've targeted at you. You are the product. They're not using you to make you happy. They're not designed to create your life and make it better. It is designed to take from you and to restrain you within the confines of their desired programming for you. So people have been controlled under the social media influence, I believe, since the dawn of the COVIDian age. And this was what the COVIDian age is designed for, because we've got the distress, we've got the perpetual fear. Nobody knows what's going on with COVID. One minute they're telling you wear a mask, now you need to wear 3 masks. Cover up, don't cover up, go to the park, don't go to the park. We don't know what's going on. The election, we don't know what's going on. The world is in distress and everything around us is being disrupted. In the time of COVIDian era, social media usage has risen between 30 to 45% on various platforms. More and more people now are staying at home because they are non-essential. They're at home and they are on their phones. And this is where they become susceptible and most susceptible. I can't say that word, you know what I'm trying to say. But that is when they are most likely to retain and be a target for mind control. And this is why we're seeing the Manchurian Karens. This is why we're seeing BLM. This is why we're seeing Antifa. This is why we're seeing anti-lockdown protests. In the anti-lockdown protest movement, a lot of those individuals that I met, not some of the cooler guys, but some of the other people that somehow friended me up, they're a hive mind. They are clones. They are just copying and sharing, sharing and agreeing, sharing, copying and pasting from a friend. That is all they're doing. That's a hive mind. That is a propaganda machine. That is one of the Tavistock Institute's method of splitting the demographics and making people anti-governmental, and also using communist regime tactics of filtering out the dissidents before a takeover, so that the government will know exactly who is going to be a troublemaker when the time comes. So Tavistock, as I said, is got his fingers in everything, and they've controlled you, they've controlled me. We've all been a victim of Tavistock's influence, one way or another. And as I said, the example is very evident that there are people under mind control out there that have been subjected to this methodology through a result of spending too much time on their social media. Now, Devil, you didn't notice, you mentioned something about not seeing the rabbit. I do got a video, it's only 3 minutes long, and it is called Copy and Paste the Bunny but Change What It's Holding. And about a month ago, I woke up one Saturday morning, and the only time I really pay attention to my social media feed is first thing in the morning. And it's not the first thing I do when I get up. The first thing I do is get up, I take a piss, I go and put the coffee on. While the coffee's making, I roll a spliff. When my coffee's made and my spliff's rolled, I go sit outside, have a smoke, have a little look, see what my friends are doing, see what you're up to. Within 10 minutes, I had seen the copy and paste meme of a bunny 16 times. And it was copy and paste. That was what it said: copy and paste the bunny, but share what it's holding. The bunny, as you know, Devil Speak, and as I've been trying to indicate to you in some of these episodes in presentations recently about MK Ultra and Monarch program and the symbols and tools they use to control individuals within scientific labs that they've now methodized and perfected and implemented into social media media news feeds, are designed to brainwash you and I. The trigger, or the rabbit rather, is a trigger for following. If you see the rabbit and you've been a monarch or you're a Manchurian person, and the rabbit will be a signal for you to follow whatever the rabbit wants you to do. In this particular exercise, it was change what it was holding. And the other startling thing about that was that 14 of the 16 times I've seen it, the rabbit was holding exactly the same thing. So I don't even think people went to the trouble of changing what the rabbit was holding. They just copied and pasted because it popped up on their newsfeed. Oh, a rabbit, copy and paste. So the rabbit, the symbology, the trigger to follow was put into a meme that people then followed to react. And I freaked out over this. And the video you've seen, I spent 2 hours. Every time I saw that bunny on my news feed or in one of my relative groups, I took a picture of it. And when I displayed this information, the cognitive dissonance that has been programmed into people kicked in. Like, oh, well, I only saw it once. Oh, I never seen it once. Oh, yeah, well, I copied and pasted it, but I only saw it once. You denied the fact that maybe the influence of mind control was there. Some people even made up excuses that, oh yeah, well, me and my friends woke up one morning, you know, we were just having some fun, and then one of us copied and pasted the bunny. It didn't. It come from a think tank, and it was designed and purposely implemented onto your news feed to see who would copy and paste the bunny. If you copied and pasted it, you followed the command, you followed the trigger. If you say amen to every meme that asks for an amen, you have been programmed and to respond to that trigger. This is the dangers, guys, and this is the start of that mind control. What I'm going to say, that this is the beginning of it. COVID isn't ending anytime soon. These lockdowns are not going to end until the new year, if ever. Right? This is a new normal, and the more and more we're isolated, the more and more we spend on our own, the more and more we spend glued to our news feeds like this, copying and sharing. Amen. I agree. We're not thinking for ourselves. We're not being proactive. We are being the opposite of that. We are becoming part of a propaganda machine. And that propaganda doesn't necessarily have to be governmental propaganda. It can be ideology propaganda, and, you know, molding people into the minds of BLM, into Antifa, into anti-maskers, into anti-vaxxers. Even, you know, like I said, back months ago, I put up the Manchurian Karens video. Go and watch that video again, because I suggested in that these people are being programmed via their news feeds to behave in a certain way, and these Karens go out when they see people that don't wear a mask. That's their trigger to behave as a Karen. Manchurian Karens. That wasn't just a quirky little title, though it was meant to be quirky to get people to watch. But, you know, watch more than 3 minutes of my videos, folks, and you might start to learn and understand what I'm trying to deliver to you. And as I said, you know, many of you do enjoy to spend time at the thrift store watching these live feeds, but less time and enthusiasm to watch when there isn't, you know, a collective audience. And I get it, the community spirit, having the show and tell and being able to sort of talk with each other is something I particularly enjoy. So I understand how that is enjoyable there. But you know, sometimes I do like to upload videos that don't ever seem to get any comments on it. So it's like, I ask myself, is the content uncomment worthy? Is it shit? Did it not resonate with anyone? Did not one thing of information within those videos cause anybody to think or have an opinion on it? And if you don't see any comments, then you sometimes think to yourself, well, was there a chance he didn't even watch it? Which is a strong likelihood, because we are being programmed to not have an attention span. We are a 140 characters memetic society. We just want to get our information from a meme. We don't even want to read an article that's 5 minutes long. We can just get our information from a meme and then copy and paste and share and agree with it, and then somebody else sees that ideology then becomes their ideology. And the more and more you think, the more and more you become a hive mind. If or not this is starting to sink in or make any sense, guys, this is why I'm trying to awaken people to it, because the only way that we can prevent this from getting worse and worse and worse is if we recognize it for ourselves. And it's recognizing those behavioral patterns in myself, realizing how I was programmed, that I tried to deprogram myself, and try to fight a battle. The art of war. Know your enemy. Most important thing, know who your enemy is. Now we have been introduced to Tavistock. I don't know if or not you have the opinion that they might well be an aggressor and an enemy that we should be aware of. And when you think that everything around you, everything that has ever happened, psychological operations, Woodstock, governmental movements, assassinations of presidents, the removal of tall steel structure buildings in big city, and we've got an internet connection unstable signal, guys. You know what happens when you're on target? The powers to be will come after you. I had so much trouble trying to get this stream up and running in the first place. Bear in mind, as I've mentioned before, the device that I've used to create today's presentation, that I used to search for all the articles and information that I try to research and put into this for you, is being recorded by the artificial intelligence. And I'm looking now, we're getting some pixelation on Facebook, and the internet and connection is unstable again. So they're coming after me, folks, for trying to
to deploy or distribute this amongst the handful of loyal thrift fam members that do tune in regularly. So I understand that it may be a hard pill to swallow. I'm not exactly targeting or being mad or angry at anyone individual, but we've got to wake up, folks, realize what we're up against, and only then can we have a chance of fighting back. So anyway, let's have a little book. What you are saying: pull a rabbit out of a hat, pull a mind out of a man. Pushing, and again, the rabbit, magic, memetics, the occult. It's very, 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 very. That was, my holy shit. That many people are under mind control. It really is that evident when you can see it for yourself, and hopefully you're beginning to see it for yourself. Share if you agree. I know 99% of you won't be brave enough, but give me an amen. Copy and pasted from a friend. You don't have to say amen. It's a trigger. I'm being satirical, guys. Thank you, Nancy. You always do say I do a good job. You're a little bit like my mum. Even if I was one of those little kids that was on the short bus and drew a picture with crayons stuck in my ear, and it was just a scribble, and said, "Mum, I drew a picture of you." She said, "Oh, it's the best picture. It's better than Rembrandt." You have, well, I'd like to think so, Cali Ninja, and we're trying to wake up. And something I've mentioned, that some of us that think we might be awake are really sleepwalking, and maybe the programming has been designed to make us behave that way. And again, I'm not saying that I'm completely deprogrammed, but I'm aware of what is being used against me, and at least then I can make a conscious effort to combat that. And although I am using a smart device in order to make these presentations. I'm doing stuff that I want to look at. I'm reading things I want to read, not things that my artificial intelligent buddy is suggesting I do. And that is what your news feed is. It's all about suggestions designed to target you, keep you your attention span on your news feed, because then the longer you're on it, the longer and more programming you will be subjected to. And that's something actually funny you should say, Devil Speak, that I do put in some of my older intros. Real Eyes Realize the Realize, and I know my boy Iggy over at Shadowband Video Productions also says the similar thing, and it's very true. The realize real lies, and as I said, I can see through the lies of deep stated shadow governmental agencies, so I can certainly see through the lies of the common man. So as I said, guys, that was the first part of what is going to be a two-parter on Tavistock. And as I said, the rabbit hole is huge. But I did want to end up, I'm not bashing or hating on trans kids or not, but that's why I wanted to end on that bit, because that is their latest little think tank project that is quite successfully being carried out in front of our eyes. And what Maiden was saying about trans people may just be gay, but they've been programmed and manipulated into thinking they're trans. When I was a kid at school, not one kid was trans. And funny enough, I was talking to the ex-wife the other day, because it was little TSP's birthday a while ago. There are a couple of TSP offspring that I know about, but my oldest was, he was 15 a couple of weeks ago, so I was having a little chat with him, and I was talking to his mum afterwards, and sort of raised the sort of rainbow and unicorn question. Is he sort of got a girlfriend? Is he interested in boys? What's the deal with these kids today? But lucky enough, he is a chip off the old block, and does have a thick, stubborn head from his Swindonian and Polack Romany gypsy roots. But I was talking to him a little bit and sort of said, hey, you got any of those trans kids at school? And he's like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, Dad. They're like fucking weird. There's they all hang around, they all hug and rub each other, and none of them kind of, and this is another weird thing, because none of them have like relationships. They just kind of group sex it up. And this is kind of what the damage of porn it is doing to the minds. Once upon a time, a little treat for Valentine's Day, perhaps with a loved one, or anniversary. You know, hey, let's watch a dirty movie, sweetheart. Or when you were a teenager, maybe you got handed a VHS, and that was a thing of sacredity that you would keep in treasure until you passed it on to somebody else, like a passing of rights, so to speak. But all of this is being designed to disable the society, and the kids in particular are being bred for the future of tomorrow, or tomorrow's society. And the genderless singularity is what is required across the board for the one world order: one religion, one currency, one government, one sex, one. Remove choice, freedom, and everything, and just live in a hedonistic, induced illusion of utopia, when it will in fact be a totalitarian, draconian dystopia, the quite opposite. But we're going to be programmed, just like many people have been programmed, to believe that everything is fine and dandy. TikTok, and again, TikTok is been one of those applications that's been in the news for all the wrong reasons during COVID. And TikTok again was the early, funny enough, one of the few videos that I did put out. It got over 1,000 views. Was what's the deal with overwhelmed healthcare workers and the TikTok challenge? And again, the TikTok challenge, this was a trigger, a medical behavior. Once one saw it, everybody did it, and they used that as an agenda. All these dancing nurses, you know, we've got nurses that watch us here, and I can't imagine dear baby P sitting around in a ward this overwhelmed with COVID victims and patients falling and needing ventilators and lining up at the doors, back, listen, we need the vaccine. All of a sudden getting our mates together and go, oh my God, COVID, this is terrible. Guy, you know what? Let's get together, let's dance, and let's listen to a little bit of Taylor Swift and do a dance routine. But we'll have to practice for a few hours to make sure we are all perfectly choreographed. And at a time when we were being told that, you know, the levels of victims, or cases rather, were very high, and we had to socially distance and stay at home, don't go to hospital unless it is absolutely necessary. Millions and millions and millions of videos are circulating about people at hospitals dancing around to mostly Taylor Swift. Memetics, mind control methodology, implementing the designed behavioral patterns of society is very evident there, just like copying and pasting the bunny. Sorry, I'm on a little bit of a roll there, but still, TikTok is very bad. And again, TikTok, all these things, powers of suggestion, devices, and designed to deliver behavioral pattern and mind control methodology. But as I said, I'm just saying, I can't imagine that Becky would do that. I mean, she might. I could imagine if they were having a day outside of the pandemic, so maybe they were on their break and sort of, you know, weren't very busy that particular day, and why not? But during a pandemic, when supposedly hundreds and thousands of people were suffering from a virus that has a 99% survival rate, yet they still need to be hospitalized, nurses found the time to do that, contradicting sides of the story and the narrative right there. Is there a pandemic, or is there time on their hands to choreograph dance routines? Anyway, guys, binary. The binary is the duality too. Non-binary is when you are single. So non-binary individuals, they're not boys or they're not girls. They have sex with whoever they want to have sex, which is where it gets bizarre. Because if you're a non-binary boy and you choose to have sex with a non-binary girl, aren't you just heterosexual? In something, goodness, this is going to sound very hard and critical, but for example, imagine, you know, we've got a lot of, when I was in California, every girl I ever seemed to met was bisexual, by design, programmed. The behavioral patterns had been implemented in it was one of those things. They weren't bisexual, they were bar sexual. So basically girls would make out with each other in the bar, and then usually some lonely fuck, oh, let me get you cold, I'll get you some shots if you make out again, let me video it for my friends. And you know, that was the closest to a threesome that they got. But the bisexual scene was something that was programmed and implemented to society, and you know, it was almost, I wanted to meet a girl that wasn't bisexual. And what was also very, very funny, that sort of when they said, oh, you know, maybe we should bring a girl home, and then you said, well, why don't you bring your girlfriend? Oh no, not tonight. She doesn't feel like it. So they don't really want to be bisexual. And even if they do bring another girl around, you say, well, why don't you eat a vagina? I don't really like to eat vagina. I thought you were a lesbian or you were bisexual. Isn't that what they do? But you know, something of interest that, let's say you're a lesbian that gets stimulated with a big dildo. Are you a lesbian? Because that is a phallic device. And is it the penal, you know, does it matter who's delivering it as long as it's penis shaped? And this is a little bit where the sort of non-binary and the sex toys and all this is designed, again, part of depopulation. The more transgender girls that think they're boys, the more transgender boys that think they're girls, that take puberty blocking drugs and hormone damaging medicines, then they're not going to be able to populate, because it's irreversible. Once it's done, it's done. And you know, if they can get a few million of these transgender kids in and about now, then that's a few million families of the future that won't be passing out offspring, if you get me. So anyway, Disney is tied to the star. Oh my god, yeah, like I don't know if I can do it actually, but I've got this video sort of saved and lined up where they show how they draw penises and vaginas, but then as the base, and but then they make them into Mickey Mouse and princesses, but it's there. And you know, Disney, the Lion King movie, there's a scene where if you slow it down in the dust, I think it's when they're stampeding wildebeests or whatever come in, a spoke of dust comes up and it says sex, sex, sex. And the Little Mermaid on the movie cover, if you look, there's a golden sort of castle in the background, but look closely, it's actually a golden penis. Subliminals, controlling the minds, all of this, Tavistock people. These are the Mac Daddies of social manipulation. They spend billions of dollars, have the best minds on the planet, the best technology, endlessly researching this. So you tell me if or not they're controlling your mind. Answers in the comments below. No need to share and agree, copy and paste, or say amen. I just want to know if you think that then Tavistock has had an influence on not only your life but the life of everyone around us after seeing what we have seen this evening. But it is 2 hours 40 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up in the 2 hour 45 mark. We are coming back tomorrow with part 2 of this, where we will get a little bit interesting, where we do look at the swinging 60s and the Tavistock influence there, as well as in it's, well, I don't know if we will be able to fit it into tomorrow's stream, because this is, as I said, a very long and deep, wide rabbit hole indeed, and the information is just like, there's lots of stuff on the internet. There just doesn't seem to be as many videos supporting, but maybe I'll do a little bit more scratching, try and get some more visuals as well as listening to me talk. And sorry for those of you that felt you had to read earlier, but you know, a little bit of group participation, do some reading. Again, the design is to get you thinking, to get you functioning, to get you acting. When you read something, you retain it. Sometimes when you listen to me in the background but chatting about other things, what I'm talking about goes over the wall and out in the wind. So reading things, you retain it. Seeing things, you retain it. Hearing things, it's a trivector of delivery of information for you. And I get it, you know, sometimes, you know, older people, eyes, that's again why I like stuff where they talk or you can read it, because when I read for hours on end, then my eyes do get a bit ski-whiff. And bear in mind, guys, sometimes when I'm reading the article, that's about the 6th or 7th article that I've already read, and I try to find the best one to deliver you that is most relevant. So as I said, guys, we are gonna be coming back tomorrow 9 p.m. And as I said, I did restructure things a little bit in terms of the scheduling. I did say tonight that we were going to have a Knowing Tea, Knowing You special, but we are going to come back and do that Thursday for Thanksgiving. It's going to be a Knowing Tea, Knowing You Thanksgiving special, and whether or not it'll be a Tea's Company Knowing Tea, Knowing You Thanksgiving special remains to be seen, but maybe not. We might have a special guest, but don't count your chickens or hold your breath on that. People call me toxically masculine. That is exactly right, same thing. I've been called toxically masculine, and a little bit of something we do like to enforce here at the thrift store. Not enforce, implement here at the thrift store is that we are keepers of the old ways. We are the non-politically correct renegades. So, as I said, that's why sometimes we do have a little bit of inappropriate humor, square and curse, and have a little bit of harmless flirtation in playful sexism. We're not sexist. We just like to, calling our male sugar tits or sweethearts, buttercups. It's all good. It's all healthy. It's all meant in good intent. It's not meant in any malicious or sinister ways. So, as I said, guys, it is nearly time to wrap this up for another night. Something of interest I will point out to you, in case any of you guys are wondering, which I'm almost certain you're not. Up until before tonight's stream begun, we've done over 30 hours of footage and content since 2 weeks of tea begun. Over a week ago, 30 hours of content I've delivered to you each and every day. I'm putting together these presentations to bring for your enjoyment, entertainment, and information purposes. Hopefully, all of the above are being ticked and you are enjoying it. So, if anyone, we've got less than a minute to go. If anyone has got any feedback or information or thoughts on what we saw tonight about Tavistock, let me know now. But if not, we can recommence once again tomorrow at 9 p.m. All that is provided, rather, that we don't face any glitches or problems from our good old artificial intelligent algorithm friend, and of course the Google moderator police that sometimes do like to oversee our proceedings at the thrift store. So, guys, thanks for tuning in to night 9 of 2 weeks of tea as part of the TSP TV 2-year anniversary. We will be back again tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, but bear in mind there might be some issues, so that's not my totally in my control. But until then, guys, take it easy, take care, keep it thrifty. Most importantly, remember to be excellent each other. Till then, guys, it is TSP TV signing out, brought to you courtesy of Ship Video Productions. Take care, guys, and see you tomorrow.